in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news tonight, jet ski operators are speaking out about business after the U.S. Embassy issued an advisory warning visitors not to patronize their operations. They say even though business was pretty slow today, they're optimistic that things will pick up. Here's LaDon Davis.
The advisory is very devastating to us because, this is how we make our livelihood and feed our family. I think what they did, not giving them totally wrong because they have a right to protect their citizens, but I think before they did what they did, I think we should maybe sit down.
Jet ski operators on Goodman's Bay near the Bahamas resort say the United States Embassy's advisory warning their citizens not to patronize their business yet again has not only taught them a valuable lesson, but has now forced them to tie up any loose ends to improve the image of the industry. Licensed jet ski operators Renwick Roll and Devin Johnson say business on the first day after the advisory was issued was relatively slow, as they believe it will put a major dent in operations.
It's going to be an effect on our bread and butter, but we have to take it one step at a time.
For the first going off, it's going to have an adverse effect on us as operators. But as time go on and we clean up our image as such, and people see that we are willing to go ahead and do what is right, then I think we will be able to, after a while, after doing what we are doing, and people see that, the perception is different of the operators, then I think maybe American Embassy and the hotels will be able to sit down with us.
Additionally, these jet ski operators say they are pleased with the outcome of that meeting with the Minister of Transport and Aviation, who assured them that things will get better for them.
The meeting that we had yesterday, which was a positive meeting with the Minister, the Port Authority is now going to buy some jet skis, which is about 4 to 6 jet skis for the officers to ride, and also the Defense Force officers. We can be in collaborations with the Defense Force officers to police the waters now. So you can't just take a jet ski and go to a remote island, like what happened with that incident, and rape a tourist, or go to a remote island and operate your jet ski, because a Defense Force officer or a port officer can ride his jet ski there and make sure that you leave the vicinity.
Like many other jet ski operators, Rose says he is hoping to one day sit down with officials from the United States Embassy to see if they can have that advisory retracted. LaDon Davis, ZNS Network News.
The government is on a damage control mission in the wake of the U.S. Embassy advisory warning U.S. citizens against patronizing jet ski operators. Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie told the media that National Security Minister the Honorable Dr. Bernard Nottage is abroad meeting with officials on several matters.
The Nottage is now with the U.S. government in Washington, engaged in certain discussions that are all going to be relevant to what we do here in the Bahamas with respect to gangs, what we do with respect to crime.
Meantime, Transport Minister Glenys Hannah Martin is responding to comments made by Long Island Member of Parliament Loretta Butler Turner, who accused her of lacking compassion for an alleged rape victim who was a guest in our country. She says Butler Turner has proven that she is a vicious and vile political opportunist. Hannah Martin says her record speaks for itself both in her ministerial portfolio and as a citizen, saying she's a genuine advocate for fairness and justice in her defense of the defenseless, including the marginalized and women and children. The Transport Minister says, unlike Mrs. Butler Turner, she's not a chronic taking head fueled by ugly ambition, saying she finds Butler Turner's political tactics to be despicable. In other news tonight, stakeholders of one of the oldest industries in the Bahamas are being encouraged to safeguard their industry. The charge by the nation's second in command being made in the wake of that U.S. security advisory. Here's Carla Palmer.
As a group of straw vendors sat for breakfast at the Crab House to mark their first annual New Year's team meeting, Deputy Prime Minister Mr. Philip Davis gave them food for thought and a reason to act accordingly to protect the industry.
You remember that little adage? The one apple could spoil a whole barrel. I also thought, when I look at this theme and thought about that little parable, a little story we heard when we were growing up about the one apple spoiling the whole barrel, is what is just happening with the tourist advisory passed out by the American Embassy about jet ski operators. How sad. How sad. And what that means, what could happen if an advisory comes out and says, look, because one away, it just takes one away to do something terrible to one of the tourists. The next thing you know, you have another advisory coming from the American, they don't go in the Nassau straw market. Do we understand what all that means?
Highlighting the straw vendors meeting theme this year, All of We is One, Minister Davis invited them to count the cost.
Counting the cost means you have to understand what the consequences of each of our actions could be. Because it takes all of us to make this work. And only take one of us to make it not work. And turn it bad on all of us.
Dwelling on the premise that there is strength in unity, the Deputy Prime Minister challenged the vendors gathered to embrace what he regards as the acronym of the word team.
You look at a team. Together is T. Each achieve more. So again, all are we being one, each of us working together and recognizing ourselves as one will achieve more.
As Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Davis pledged the support of his office to building the straw and craft industry, he also solicited the support of all stakeholders to do likewise. Carla Palmer, ZNS Network News.
Officials of the National Training Agency are thinking of ways to fund themselves to keep the much-needed program in operation to not only enhance the existing Bahamian workforce, but ensure that more young people become employable. Janaea Noel Ferguson tells us tonight about a new project which is being worked on.
As the National Training Agency prepares to take on a new group of trainees, construction is nearing completion on its convention and new training command center that will allow the agency to not only expand their reach, but produce revenue to fund future operations. The new facility is directly behind their rented office space on the Gladstone Road area. Director Agatha Marcel is excited about what they've been able to accomplish in the 2 short years.
We have 4 rooms dedicated to tutorials. We have a main convention center that can seat about 550 or so people. Then we have 2 smaller convention meeting rooms. One will be able to seat about 200, the other about 125. Those are going to be available for rent.
Marcel says the new facility will also complement Phase 2 of the agency's mandate to strengthen middle managers within the workforce to increase productivity.
A lot of us, we have paper, but we don't necessarily know how to work because paper is knowledge-based. So we need to learn how to turn that knowledge into process. This we are offering, this kind of training will be process-based so that you can actually see the steps to achieving a result that you want. As we begin to provide the training and development for those who supervise and manage them in the same way, then we know the focus comes off personality and who didn't do what, and the focus now goes on the process of producing the results that we want.
NTA's director is anticipating an opening of the center by the end of February. She hopes their continued efforts will assist in overhauling the Bahamian workforce.
But you can only educate people at their competency levels. You can't force someone who isn't academic to be academic. But I know that every one of us have a talent, something we can do. And we see it coming from these young people. They may not have gotten one BJC, but they could get a first-class pass from City and Guilds in food and beverage service and in food preparation.
Registration for the National Training Agency continues throughout the month of January. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.